so that, yeah. Welcome to everyone. This is the training series of the Green Index 3.0. Today, we are going to start with the first standard, environmental strategy. My name is Natalia Realpe Carrillo, Director of HEDERA Sustainable Solutions, and delivering this training as lead expert for the Green, Inclusive, and Climate Smart Finance Action Group of the European Microfinance Platform. Today, we are starting this series. As you know, we will have different sessions on a weekly basis. These sessions are delivered by Davide Forcella from the Just Institute and CERMI, and by me, Natalia Realpe, from HEDERA Sustainable Solutions in English and Spanish. The sessions, as you see, you can register if you prefer to any of the languages. We will start today, 19th of December until of November until the 10th of December, and Davide will be delivering the French sessions and also half of the English ones. After you attend the 4 sessions, you will receive a certificate of participation for the training series on the Green Index 3.0 framework. So we encourage you to attend to all of them and also to actively participate, and don't hesitate to put or to raise your questions whenever is needed. As rules, as you see this submitting, we are having, so you can turn on your videos, turn on your mics when you have any question in the moments that, you can raise your hand, and then from the European Microfinance Platform, we can make needed stops if you have immediate questions, or we can dedicate also at the end some room for discussion and reply to all your questions or comments you may have. Okay. So far, let me screen the chat if we see any immediate comment. Very nice to see everybody here connected. Heartily greetings to the personal messages. Welcome to all, and very nice to see that you are already engaging and interacting. So let's get started. Today's session, here. So today's session, the idea is that we will have provide you an initial understanding of the standard, of the first standard of the tool, of the Green Index, and as well share with you best practices from FSPs. The second objective is to develop the basis for assessing the status of participant institutions, here with the FSPs that are attending today, in relation to the standard environmental strategy of the Green Index, and identify which gaps may require some action. So for this, the agenda that we will have is we will give or provide an introduction of what are we talking about when addressing green inclusive finance and what is the Green Index tool. Then we will go through the good practices of the first standard on environmental strategy, and what's the content of this standard, what are the indicators that it has, and how to fill it. As you know, we had in the registration form some questions about how familiar were you with the standard, with the Green Index, as well with the also with green inclusive finance, and what are your needs. And we see that while some institutions have already implemented, many of you, it's the first time that you see the tool. So even more important that we give an introduction and a first overview of what are we referring in regards to the tool and also to the sector or to the concept of green finance. This This tool has been developed by the Action Group, the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group, which is a unique multi-stakeholder think tank for environmentally responsible inclusive finance. It was launched more than a decade ago, hosted at the European Microfinance Platform, and as of today, we have more than 150 members affiliated from 75 institutions. The objectives of this group is to discuss challenges and strategies in green inclusive finance to improve the knowledge and action of inclusive finance actors, like as you, on this subject, and enhance the cooperation among stakeholders and increase the international attention for this subject, develop dedicated tools as the Green Index or the Green Map online library that we have, publish and disseminate the findings that we have gathered and enhance the interest and concrete commitment. I'm happy to see that with the outreach that we have had today, we see that the work that we have been dedicated in the past years is bringing some fruits, and hope that after these sessions that you can then engage and implement this Green Index tool within your institutions and also with your peers, your investees, your partners. What are we referring when we are talking about green inclusive finance? We have three main concepts that along these past years where we collected feedback and discussed with many stakeholders on what is the evolution of green microfinance, we came on and identified these main three concepts. First, vulnerability, how clients and institutions are affected by the environment. Economic opportunities, how green can satisfy demand and increase revenues. And as well, how adverse impacts, how clients and institutions affect the environment with the work that they perform. So these are the three concepts that we will rely on them when addressing green inclusive finance, as it sits on the nexus between resilience generation, ecosystems conservation, and generation of better and more resources for the excluded populations and enterprises that you are addressing, attending with your financial services. So with the goals of when shaping a program of green inclusive finance, it's not only about reducing vulnerability, but as well of reducing adverse impacts and increasing those economic opportunities. Other two concepts that you will hear across or along the tool is the term indirect and direct. Green inclusive finance or green microfinance is not only the delivery of those green financial products to the clients, but also applies to what is happening, what is being implemented within the institution. So it applies to both to clients and to the institutions itself, the institution meaning the assets and the staff, and vulnerability and those adverse environmental impacts should be identified and managed at both levels. So when we're talking about indirect, we're addressing to the activities of the clients, their adverse environmental impacts, and also their vulnerability. And direct, it regards to the institution and the human resources. So their adverse environmental impact and vulnerability, that's your direct impact, okay? Then, let's have an introduction on the Green Index. And see here. So far here on the concepts, let me go again through the chat. Is there any comment, question, any raised hand in regards to the concept? Is it clear, the difference between vulnerability, adverse impact, and economic opportunities? I don't see any, but Joanna from e-MFP, you can interrupt me anytime, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Good. So I continue here. So the Green Index is this tool or framework that we have developed to assess the financial service providers' current performance in inclusive green finance and for defining an action plan and improve it. It has been developed since 2004 when the action group was only some few members that were working on this subject, And since then, we have had different editions and updating of the tool. This tool is to assess the performance of the financial service provider, so it is at institutional level, and it's used only for the institution, whether for management or the loan officers, but not for the clients. So it helps to raise awareness to the institutions in regards to what are we talking about when referring to green inclusive finance, to evaluate what are the activities that have been implemented by the institution, to enhance the commitment, to plan, seeing what are the gaps that the institution has in regards to each of the standards, prioritize those actions, and also monitor progress as you can implement it once a year, my recommendation, so that you see how you advance on the different levels: strategy, risk management, and product development. As you may know, or if someone recognizes these three levels: strategy, risk management, and product offer, I'm referring as well to those essential practices and dimensions of the Dimension 7 of the Universal Standards for Environmental and Social Performance Management. This, when we were updating the Green Index 3.0, we coordinated together with CEDIS and SPTF in order to update the tool and align this with the Dimension 7, so that when you fill out the Green Index, you are also filling out the Dimension 7, and that the assessment of the Green Index, the identification of the gaps and plan, is aligned as well with what you will plan with the Dimension 7. Like this, we are enabling all these institutions that have been following up with their social environment and social performance management, with their audits, and now integrating the environmental dimension so that you can continue with your follow-up and audits. As well, so I see just one question in regards to sharing the materials. You will receive these materials so that you can explore more in detail. Of course, feel free to take screenshots or notes, whatever you feel comfortable or need to see more in detail what we're talking about, as some slides will be very content intense. Well, now the Green Index, so as a tool and also aligned to the Dimension 7, it consists of these 4 standards. It's a survey that has these 4 sections. One is on environmental strategy. The second one is in the identification of environmental risk and opportunities. The third one is in the management of environmental risk and opportunities. And the fourth one is the green products and services, financial and non-financial. So when we launched the Green Index in its first version in 2014, the tool raised awareness on why were institutions doing green activities, if they were doing only at their strategy level or if they were already offering some products. And between 2014 and 2016, it was an optional dimension in the CEDIS SPI tool. Some of the institutions that I see connected may remember about this questionnaire that had some very few questions on what was happening in regards of the environmental performance of the institution. And from 2016, when it was included in the SPI and then implemented in several projects, then now from 2016 to 2021, we have done an effort from e-MFP and the action group and its members, collecting feedback at the 3 levels: investors, practitioners, and also the FSPs, to revise all the indicators, to revise as well different regulations and frameworks that there are in the field, and see how can we improve it and identify other actions that are also aligned to the goal of having a better environmental performance at institutional level. So this is the result of a multi-stakeholder, say like a full sector that has been working on. And with this development and with these trainings, we aim that many more institutions use this tool, that it's open source and free for all the organizations to use, and that it becomes more and more a language and taxonomy that can be a reference for you to plan ahead and also develop your priorities within your programs. So how can we do this? Let's go into the details of the standards and also the essential practices that it entails. Let's focus first on this one. So today's session is on the Green Index, on the first standard environmental strategy, how to define it and put it in place or implement it. It has two essential practices. The first one is on the definition of the strategy. What are the detailed goals, the mission, documented strategy, compliance with applicable standards and regulation. And the second essential practice is putting in place that strategy. We are going to revise what are the responsibilities and processes, the management and governance, how is the monitoring in terms of economic vulnerability, negative environmental impacts. Each of the standards has as well two essential practices, and within the essential practices, we have different indicators. So when we were discussing last week at the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group meeting, we were discussing about the tool and feedback from participants, and there it came the point about whether institutions are ready to see what is or what are they already doing, what they are already doing wrong or not ideally environmentally friendly. And I want to insist here on the point that the tool does not punish if you are not yet, or if you are financing environmental activity, or sorry, financial activities that may affect the environment. For instance, financing chemical agri products, or if you are attending sectors that may affect the environment on a long term. It's not that it's going to punish you at this level, but it makes you, while you are going through the tool, it will make you reflect on what can you do better, so that your institution is more aware of that environmental conscious, and you will reflect on what are other institutions doing that you can already integrate, or that maybe you are doing but you didn't know that it was a sustainable practice. Yeah. Having low points is only a sign that you have a potential there to grow and to learn from other actions that are listed in order then to plan. But if you have, I'm just encouraging to use in order for you to reflect and see what is the full world that you have in terms of integrating sustainability within the institution. How to integrate that sustainability? You can identify environmental risks and opportunities, and this with different tools and with different capabilities that you will integrate within the institution. And this you can do it at indirect risk and opportunities, so at client level, and that identification of direct risk and opportunities at the institutional level. Then how is the management of the environmental risk and opportunities? This standard assesses whether you are including vulnerability and negative environmental impact and demands in your financial risk management processes or tools and indicators, or whether in the credit processes and products, if you are already managing those indirect risks. Or as well, if you are using the opportunities that you have and the fostering partnerships or taking action and processes to reduce the institution vulnerability and negative environmental impacts and grabbing those opportunities for your institution. So that's the management of those direct risks and opportunities. And the last one is on the green products and services, financial and non-financial. And then here you will see a very detailed list of what could you offer, what are you offering, and then as well in terms of the non-financial products and services, in terms of technical assistance or awareness raising, training for your clients and staff, and as well development of partnerships. So here you have a full overview of what is the tool about. It is very detailed. Detailed as well means that it's not easy. It's not a fast tool to use, but therefore here the training, here engaging in, getting in depth on the subject and going step by step. Okay, so don't be afraid. So now with this overview, we have spent the first 25 minutes. Let's see on the chat if you have any questions so far on the introduction of the tool, on the concepts, on green inclusive finance. If you have a different approach to it, this is the moment before we go more in depth in the good practices. I see. Thank you. We have no questions in the chat. Jonathan has raised a hand.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Yes, Jonathan from IFAD. I'm part of your group. Sorry, we've not probably interacted recently. My question is around whether you are aware of other tools like this green index, and if we've been able to compare the the uptake of such tools by various stakeholders, especially financial institutions.
Yes. Yes, we have, or there are available other tools as the green index, such as the dimension 7 of the Universal Standards for Social and Environmental Performance Management, which is more reduced survey, and with the options yes, no, partially in regards to the actions and indicators that are entailed. But as we said, is the green index has the dimension 7 as well within the survey. There are other methodologies in regards, or frameworks in regards to green inclusive finance developed by the Center for Financial Inclusion, CFI, in regards to defining what is green inclusive finance across 4 pathways: climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, resilience and transition, though it doesn't have a questionnaire, but rather exposes or defines that the offer of microfinance institutions can address these pathways, though not exclusive and not a taxonomy, because one product financing solar water pumps, as we were discussing last week, is not just mitigation, but could be as well adaptation or resilience. And the other tool is from CGAP in regards to delivering taxonomy for climate adaptation financial products. Well, that delivers some guidance on what our institutions could offer in order to manage risks and also to offer financial and non-financial products. But as well, it's not yet a survey that could define strategy, risk management, and product offering for institutions. So far in the sector of microfinance, we have the green index as a standard, and impact investors have developed as well their own indicators in their due diligence and impact reporting in the relationship investee and investor, but sector-wide, we have the green index as a reference. Okay. I see no other question. Okay, Moses Agaba. Moses, you can turn on your mic.
My name is Moses from Rwanda.
Welcome.
And I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one, I see the flow of, if you could go to the previous slide, the
Yes.
flow of the index, of the green index. I wanted to ask, I have questions about the flow, because if in G1 identification of environmental risks and opportunities, and management, and G1-2 management of environmental risks and opportunities,
yes,
how they should come before, I mean, how they should come after you have designed the environment, you've defined the environmental strategy, yet G1 and G2 are the key elements to defining the vulnerability and assessment to risks before
yes.
that should guide in designing the environmental strategy.
I love that question. Yeah, you're totally right. We should start with the identification of risks and opportunities, and then management of those. And then you starting by the identification in order to define the strategy. I will share you in 2 slides a resource where you can go to the trainings that we have at the general overview of the Green Index, where we explain from the view of risk management and from the view of opportunities development, how is the process and how do we start from the identification. So the idea is that while you are developing implementing all these activities, the identification will define the aspects to concentrate in your strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the message that we give here with the standards is that green microfinance shouldn't be only just a product, as we have seen for many years from institutions, that they have just a product and then they are already doing green finance. What we want to say is that green inclusive finance can be successful within an institution when it is part of the holistic strategy of the institution. And for being part of the strategy, it should have goals, it should have responsible, it should have a budget, it should have indicators in order to monitor the implementation of that strategy. And then this strategy should be monitored by the risks that have been identified, the actions taken in order to manage those risks, and that they should be translated into an offer for the clients. Yeah. So you see the
second,
the flow.
Thank you. The second question, maybe when I see that detailed flow, then it should also help me answer the second question, because I was asking, when I looked at this flow, I didn't see an area that captures the regular measurement and verification of different indicators in the environmental strategies, so that because the National Bank of Rwanda here, the central bank, it requires financial institutions to make regular disclosures and reporting about measurement and hedging against environmental risk and vulnerability. So that reporting system, the guidance, I don't see it in this flow, and maybe maybe the detailed process.
You will see it now in the good practices and more in detail in this standard, specifically in this standard, in the second essential practice about the monitoring. Yeah, and the monitoring, it will be fed as well by the identification, which tools have been used, and then if those if those identified KPIs are used also for the management. But the full monitoring is in this implementation of the strategy. So you will see the questions in that regard. Okay? Okay, so now that we have dedicated, Moses, I hope that I have answered your questions. Let's continue now with the good practices. And for these good practices, I'm happy to share these resources that we have and that I invite you to explore after or in between the trainings. The first one is the Green Map. The Green Map is a tool in order that has been developed last year as a project from the European Microfinance Platform and with the support of the government of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. That collects information from different FSPs and also from impact investors and multi-stakeholder programs in order to show what are financial service providers doing in terms of green inclusive finance. So you will see the different practices and therefore why green inclusive finance is so rich in its different activities along the standards that we are considering. And the second resource, good practices on environmental strategy, is we have here different case studies for the definition of the strategy that we will revise more in detail today, from Asilasime Solidarité, an FSP in Togo, from Cameroon in Cambodia, Fortune Credit in Kenya, and from Fundación Génesis Empresarial from Guatemala. So with these case studies that we have two case studies per essential practice along those standards that we will be revising and seeing what did these institutions implemented within with their clients and also at institutional level, so that they expose examples for the full sector. And the third resource that we invite you to have a look is the trainings on environmental strategy. We have developed a training series with videos and also with very detailed PowerPoint presentations with 9 modules on green inclusive finance. And this first one, or this first training, is referring as well to the green strategy module that you can access it from e-MFP's website. As we will be sharing this presentation, you will have access to the links. But if you are very eager to see them now, while we discuss, maybe we can share them in the chat, at least the ones for the case studies. So here, let's get with some input also, listening to you. What does it mean to have a green strategy? And what does it mean also to implement a green strategy? If you want to comment in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and say a brief pitch, let me know. So I see here, anyone? What does it mean to have a green strategy? Yeah, I saw new participants joining the training. Anyone having a green strategy? I see, well, it's controversial as well, the word green. If we can start here by the question, but here we're talking about like the environmental objectives. If you have those, or as we have discussed before, if you have those objectives in place, mission and a vision, and then when you are developing a strategy, if you have planned actions, if you have a team responsible for those actions, and if you are monitoring that these actions are implemented. We will see now, so in detail, what does it mean for this standard? So it is about assessing how the environmental strategy is defined and how it is put in place, including their roles and responsibilities, the alignment with local or international standards, and how the institution monitors and reports on implementation of its environmental strategy. I see from Johnson Rucara, I will read out loud as in the recording, it will not be possible to see the chat. From my perspective, to have a green strategy, it means you want to become sustainable in the business, especially where the business sector we work in depends on the environment. So to be conscious that we depend also on the nature, that we are not, that everything that happens in the environment around will affect as well the business. So by becoming a sustainable business and also fostering sustainability with the products and services that you offer, then you are developing a green strategy. You are having a green strategy. From Anna Manahan, to have a clear framework and guidance in responsible and sustainable financing. Very good. I agree with those two comments. Anyone else? Or let me pose another more controversial question. Like, when do you say that it's greenwashing in terms of microfinance? So when will you say that's greenwashing? Ms. Gana, Lima, establishing clear objectives to promote environmental sustainability. Yes, you need objectives, but not only objectives, but also implementation. You can have goals, but if you don't do anything, then the environmental strategy will be, it's only on the paper. Anyone about greenwashing? A raised hand or a comment in the chat? From Paula Cortez, greenwashing when you say you are having an impact, but you can't prove it. Yeah, so when you are having an impact, a sustainable impact, or that you are saying that you are going to have green inclusive finance, but you can prove it. But here, it might depend also on whether you are gathering the right data, or you have the ability to have the tools, or you're just saying that you are doing it, but you don't do it. Would you agree? The practice of companies or organizations misleading consumers about environmental benefits of a product, service, or overall corporate practices. Yeah, that can happen as well. That can happen as well with greenwashing, misleading consumers. I saw a case of microfinance institution offering electric tools in order to cut trees so that it is faster to have firewood for cooking. So greenwashing could be, this is green because it's electrical and faster, the technology, but the purpose, it's not environmental at all. It's not environmentally friendly. From Asel Usenbaiba, greenwashing is a sneaky way that companies use to deceive consumers by making false or exaggerated claims about their environmental efforts or products. Yeah, and let's keep this one. In greenwashing is a sneaky way. So when to deceive consumers by making false or exaggerated claims, we will see here, and for all FSPs, all practitioners that we are working on green inclusive finance, the objectives that you will claim all the objectives that you put should be reflected then into actions. And just be aware in the context that you are working, the capabilities that you have, the resources that you have, in order not to fall into this risk that you will do exaggerated claims about your environmental efforts or products, and that you will not be then in this, that you will be just claiming about a greenwashing strategy. So how to do it? And now we will, I think with this reflection, we can continue and see some good practices that we hope is not greenwashing, but that institutions are really doing and implementing. So the environmental strategy and the two essential practices, definition of the strategy and putting in place the strategy. Why are we dividing? Because as I said to one of the comments, one thing is to define it, but it's not enough only to define, you need to also implement it. Yeah. And for this, we are, what we're saying is that in this standard, we are assessing whether the institution has this environmental strategy and systems in place to implement it. It has defined it, and the systems enable for them to implement that strategy. So what are some good practices that we have identified? These are defined here in the different indicators that the tool is evaluating. The institution's environmental engagements are formalized in mission, vision, the values that they have. The institution has a documented strategy that specifies its intention to achieve environmental goals. The institution's environmental strategy specifies items required to implement the strategy. The institution operates in accordance with applicable laws and regulation, non-mandatory industry initiatives, international standards and regulation, or green taxonomy. Here, for instance, the case of Rwanda or Egyptian MFIs that have to report and follow applicable laws at a national level. The institution has established partnerships in regards to the development of green inclusive finance, or the institution has assigned an annual budget for the achievement of its environmental strategy. Quantitative indicators that we have in this section is the annual budget assigned for the achievement of its environmental strategy as a percentage of the total full strategy. Yeah. And then we have, so now we will start looking at the practices. I leave one more second. Let's leave 5 seconds here, this slide, so that you read in detail the indicators that we are addressing here. Engagements, documented strategy, what are the elements that are required to implement the strategy, operating in accordance with applicable laws, having partnerships, and having an annual budget. Are we clear on this? Thumbs up. All right, so let's start with the first. Thank you. Let's get started with the first good practice. I see here a question from Fundación Grameen Crédit Agricole, Philippe. According to you, what will be the good percentage for budget allocation? What is the current practice? Yeah, that's a good question. I have seen very little percentage for budget allocation on this, on the total. And what it concerns me is that not only that it's a small percentage, but then that institutions dedicate a very few percentage of own resources. So they say from their own resources is a very, very little percentage. Then it's expected that the partnership will cover the rest of the percentage. And then that percentage is mostly dedicated within a specific project or program that has been developed within the institution. Our goal as sector, and what we will need, is that institutions define this percentage as already part of their full strategy, that it is not small, but that it's defined within their roles that they have, and as a proper department that has full-time work to do along the year, and that this increase. What we have seen is less than 10%. We see other questions related to the strategy is do not harm. Its effective implementation fits within normal internal control and audit functions, thus with marginal additional cost. So this is a comment from Michael Crane. I guess this is in regards to the budget allocation. That means that it is hard to track what is the budget assigned to the environmental strategy. So I will show you some good practices, and we can reflect together about the budget allocation. And then I can share with you some experience that I have had with projects development with institutions. So let's get started with Asilasime from Togo. This institution has environmental commitments that have been formalized in an environmental strategy that has been adopted in 2022. These environmental objectives, we have 3 objectives here: to be a reference in the field of microfinance in environmental protection, manage internal and external environmental risks. So we have here direct and indirect, reducing customer vulnerability and the negative impacts of climate change on customers and institutions, and promoting positive environmental impacts. And the third one, promote ecological and resilient solutions. So anyone here can reflect on what is portraying these environmental objectives? Do you see an alignment to Green Index or Dimension 7? Yeah, any thumbs up here? So we see here that the environmental objectives are addressing the management of those risks and the provision of products and services. And here, being a reference in the field of microfinance and environmental protection, you can share for those working with Asilasime Togo, we can share that they have reached that goal by, as here we are exposing one of the case as a reference in the field of microfinance and environmental protection for the full sector. So then objective number 1, we see that improving the institution's environmental performance as measured by the Green Index and strengthening its position in the field of green inclusive microfinance. The second objective, managing internal risks, saying reducing the production of plastic waste and cutting energy and paper consumption, installing solar panels at the head office and in 4 branches in Lomé, with installation plan in the remaining branches in 2024 this year, and setting up a waste sorting and recycling system. I hope any of you were able to attend to accompany Asilasime last year at the SAM, where they exposed their program of waste sorting and recycling. Anyone? I hope so. Okay. Then objective number 2, manage external risks, reducing the proportion of customers with a negative impact on the environment, converting customers using chemical products to adopt organic storage solutions, converting charcoal or firewood sellers to develop other income generating activities, so diversifying income streams, and discouraging restaurant owners and retailers from using plastic bags and packaging. So you see these objectives can also be inspiration for other FSPs working with clients with similar challenges. And here now as you see the topic, managing external risk or indirect risk, addressing those risks of the clients. Question from Paula, don't you think this is too focused on mitigation and not adaptation of their clients? I see that in the case of chemical products for converting customers using chemical products to adopt organic storage solutions. Yeah, or reducing the, let me see, Paula, let's go, mitigation or not adaptation. I will say that the use of less plastic to protect the environment, that's, yeah, mitigation of polluting materials. Converting charcoal or firewood sellers to develop other income generation activities is mitigation of CO2, but as well, there might be less wood, less trees, and with the droughts also, that there is less supply of nature, or it's lower the reforestation. So I will say that it's both mitigation and adaptation. And reducing the proportion of customers with negative impact on the environment is as well mitigation aspect. Yeah, I will agree with you, Paula, that it is much more on the mitigation, but I will say that with the challenging conditions that we saw in Togo, now with increasing heat, with increasing droughts or less water resources, anything that we can adopt or implement in order to be more environmentally friendly towards nature is also an adaptation practice. Yeah. Let's continue, but we will let's have that in focus. I know that this has been heavily discussed, whether we are addressing adaptation or mitigation. And here I will invite also as well about talking climate resilience. Then here, promote ecological and resilient solutions, raising awareness and training in agricultural credit customers in more resilient and ecological farming practices, providing access to healthier, greener energy sources, and involving groups in plastic waste collection. So I would say like the first one is definitely a climate adaptation and resilient objective, while the other two could be of both objectives. And then the definition of that strategy is not only not the good practice here to highlight is that it's not only about defining those objectives, but then be explicit on what are those expected results in a short, medium, long term that the institution should have in order to develop an action plan. Expected results, I will read just some few of them, but you can read them then later in detail. Improve the environmental performance and strengthen its position in the field of green inclusive microfinance. So which objective is this addressing? Objective number 1, reduce in-house plastic waste production, reduce internal energy and paper consumption at internal level, reduce the proportion of customers with a negative impact on the environment, raise awareness and train at least 75% of its agricultural credit customers, encourage at least 50% of customers using chemical products to adopt organic storage solutions. I will read them all because I see here interesting things. Encouraging 30% of the customers who sell charcoal to convert to other income-generating activities, discourage the use of plastic bags and packaging in over 80% of restaurants, to have enabled 60% of customers to access healthier, more environmentally friendly energy sources, involve at least 25% of the existing lending groups in plastic waste collection. Anyone here, we have 1 minute before 11, anyone here that has an immediate reaction to these objectives? Sorry, expected results?
Tatiana Triotis, can I just briefly comment? My
Yes.
question to you was, do you go into content of this? Because when you see reduction of plastic and paper, these are mutually potentially exclusive goals. And then packaging in the restaurants and retailers, if you're speaking about plastic bags, so once again, what would it be replaced with? But it's
Yes.
always, I mean, not always it is the plastic that is the problem. It is not recyclable, one-time use plastic.
Yes.
So these are the things where I would be paying attention because, yeah, the
Yes.
specifics of it, I think, are not completely thought through.
So I see that for some of the objectives, I see many things. So yes, Tatiana, it will be good about them being as detailed as possible and differentiating between objectives, because per objective you will have a KPI that will track, and then if the KPI, no, you cannot have one objective with these two or you can have with two KPIs, but it can risk that in your system you will say it has decreased by 50%, but you didn't know if it was paper or energy or plastic or what exactly. Yeah, so you can differentiate among all. Second, that we have some of them, some objectives very generous or very ambitious, and it can, yeah, although it's until 2026, we can be also, it is good to be ambitious, but then estimate what will be the efforts that you will need. And what is missing maybe here because of the space, or in the case study, not enough space to comment on the details, how exactly will be this result achieved. Other thing is that what we were discussing last week about how are we developing green finance, always, and this is an invitation also to the stakeholders, think about that we are delivering inclusive financial services. Inclusive meaning your clients were denied entrance to another financial institutions that they could go, and they chose your institution. If they are choosing your institution, just make sure that all the processes that you have, whether from the screening up to the delivery, that there are ways, if they didn't classify within your list, offer options or offer a path or recommendations on how can they be then part of your customers. Yeah, if you say encourage at least 50% of the customers using chemical products to adopt organic storage solutions, I will worry why only 50 and not to all. And the objective, you could put other objective is to have at least a percentage, maybe smaller, converted, but encouragement should be to all of them. Yeah. And here we see some more comments in the chat. Very nice. Very nice objectives. Jonella Ketrin, just a question. What was the baseline that the institution established for this consumption or achievements? Was there any system in place to measure consumption results? Other comment, Ms. Gana Lima, these are very informative and smart objectives. Hands from the results of less percentage of clients with negative environmental impact is not meaningful without concrete references, because a shift from agri clients to traders is not meaningful. So you see here some reflections also when you are going to develop your own objectives. We see they should be smart objectives, but as well to be to provide references or making clear if this is a change that we aim, is it something that we are looking for or not? And for this, Yonela, I think your comment is very good, a good practice, and for all of them, if you enable or if you define a percentage, it should already have a baseline. Baseline is not here exposed, Yunela, but the institution, of course, they have in order then to monitor their practices over time. And then if we continue for the implementation, the strategy has translated specific objectives into sub-objectives and activities, and the 5-year action plan has been broken down into annual action plans. That's a very good practice. Resource requirement, the environmental strategy has defined the resources, staff, financial required for its implementation. It defines the role and sharing of responsibilities of the key staff, and the environmental strategy, they list objectives, the type of existing or to be set up, what type of partnerships they need. The institution has earmarked a budget of 45,000 euros, including 10% of its own resources, responding to the previous question, and the monitoring quarterly scorecards on annual review, midterm review with a final evaluation, and it will be monitored using the dimension 7 of the Universal Standards for Social and Environmental Performance Management. So immediate question from IFAD, how much of this knowledge should financial institutions know? And I'll say a lot of knowledge, not a lot, but for defining the objectives, it should be clear what could be the scope of being more sustainable and integrating sustainability within the institution. And that's the knowledge that we see here, Asila Sime has incorporated after seeing what could they do at direct level and indirect with their clients, and it's portrayed it here with the strategy that they have defined, as well identifying already tools, identifying already partners, setting up the different objectives, expected results per objective, and defining which resources they have. So I see that in this case, the institution was very aware. Tatiana, here, what does it mean 10% of own resources? Is it 10% of the 45 and the rest of the money will come from where? Exactly from partnerships for developing and implementing the strategy. So that will be 4,500 euros from their own resources. Let's continue with the second case, so that we can follow up with the pace. Definition of the strategy, good practices by Cambodia. As you know, all these case studies, you can find them in the green map, but I think it's more interesting if we can discuss them. I see that the discussion with the first one was great. Let's see for the second one if how you go with these good practices that we are showcasing. So Cameroon has a documented strategy that specifies the intention to achieve 2 main environmental goals: fostering the adoption of green practices and technologies to meet client demands for green practices among agricultural SMEs, and offer renewable energy technologies. Actually, this could be even just one goal. It has an environmental policy since 2017. It has established numerous local partnerships with a range of organizations, technology providers for the renewable energy technologies, and value chain management platform that aims to integrate all the actors in the rice value chain. So what you see here from the institution is, because they're addressing different sectors, then it has divided the environmental objectives in the different types of technologies, because one is about the green practice and technologies for the agricultural SMEs, and the other, the renewable energy technologies. And for this, they track the implementation of the strategy with indicators in water, energy, and paper consumption, which are reviewed annually. So these include quantifiable targets, and in terms of the kilowatt hours of electricity used, the cubic meters of water consumption, and the paper and toilet paper used by the staff at the head office. So what we see here missing in the environmental goals, we have green practices not only with the clients, but also within the institution, direct goals, and besides from having the clients. And they're very aware of what indicators to follow. And the definition, they operate according in accordance to non-mandatory environmental protection, again, the dimension 7 of the universal standards, and uses international standards and regulation for disclosure and management of adverse environmental impacts, the SDG number 6 in clean water, of access to clean water and sanitation, and SDG number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And they publicly they publish their reports in the SPI4, and other green performance tools are used as designed by investors. So as what I mentioned before, investors have their own indicators and they report to them. So let's see here first comment from Nadine Madine. Case from Lebanon. In case of war, since we are living this in Lebanon at the time being, as a financial institution, temporarily shifting to providing dignity kit and necessary food distribution, does this affect us if the products that might be distributed might not be green friendly? You mean if they are distributed with plastics? Since you are trying our best to be green friendly institution, do we have to check every item distributed, or in case of emergency, we can do what is best to be distributed due to the situation and available resources? Nadine, you are in an exceptional case. If you can offer the food and then have a system to collect as well the plastic that you may use, that will be the best intention that you have. I think, or sending the message, you can put the message on the kits to be conscious about where to dispose or to keep them and then give them back, and then from your institution try a way to manage this. That will be an effort that you can do. I think that you are not responsible of delivering, of designing the packaging, but rather thinking what will be, if you are thinking already what could be the impact and offer solutions, that will be trying your best. Okay? But yeah, no, thanks. I think that's no, thanks to you. Yeah, I think it's about having the consciousness. But just to remark about Cameroon, Cambodia, is what they wanted to emphasize here is about the different standards that they are following, the indicators and the tools that they are using, the definition of their goals that are more specified to their clients, but as we saw that they already have also goals within the institution that are not specifically defined in their environmental goals. And the third, and what you saw from the two institutions, they have a documented strategy. It's not objectives and visions that you have just because. So now let's go to the second essential practice, is putting in place the environmental strategy, and what are those good practices. So if we see here, what are the indicators that we will see in the tool? We have these 8 indicators, so defining the roles and the responsibilities. The board and management make strategic decisions based on environmental performance data. The institution trains board members and management of their environmental performance management responsibilities. The institution ensures the implementation of its environmental strategy. The institution implements a complete ESG, environmental and social management system. The institution has defined processes to monitor the progress. The institution has integrated indicators into its MIS. I think this is one of the hardest for the institutions. And the institution collects data on an ongoing basis to measure whether it is achieving its environmental goals. Actually, the last two are the most difficult, but if you have the right tools, if you have the will and you know exactly what to do, they are achievable. It's not impossible. You can do it. What are those quantitative indicators? Full-time equivalent staff, number of KPIs achieved, percentage of the fulfillment of each KPI that you have defined, percentage of total obtainable market, percentage of total obtainable market reach for non-financial products, for those services that you're offering, the frequency per year on reporting on progresses of clients' portfolio vulnerability to climate change, environmental degradation or the biodiversity loss, number of meetings per year, including the topic of management of vulnerability to climate change, environmental degradation or biodiversity loss, percentage of clients that have reduced their vulnerability to climate change, environmental degradation, or biodiversity loss. As you see, we have many more quantitative indicators. This is putting in place a strategy. This is about monitoring that you are implementing the strategy. And here, with this, if you, of course, you will need a baseline in order to monitor the progress. But once you do a first assessment, that will be afterwards. From there, you can then monitor onwards. How are you changing on those indicators? Tatiana, could you please comment, or question addressed to me, could you please comment also on the issue of materiality of the topics or indicators that FSPs decide to focus on? Is there guidance on how to assess that? This we will see in the identification and management of risks, Tatiana. So let's continue for the next 2 weeks. Jonathan, does a financial institution need an expert in their staffing to be able to put in place such a strategy or part of the strategy that applies to them? I've seen different approaches. Or the institution has already a social performance department, and then that social performance department adopts the environmental program or environmental objectives that they have. And that social performance department usually have already experience with the universal standards, are aware of the integration of the environmental dimension, and therefore it was easy in integration. Or they have been supported by impact investors, technical assistance in order to develop that expertise, and then deciding, yes, we need an external to our institution to help us in the first term. Always, I recommend to have we call them before green champion, or to have that responsible, and then having that staff or that person, that department that will lead them in the implementation. As well, other good practices to have a committee, so that it's not only that one person that will be in charge of everything, but that all the departments are involved. So yes, my short answer is yes, they need an expert in their staff to be able to put in place the strategy. And then part of the strategy as well is that how that expert is integrated, and external with the knowledge, and also to be embedded within the financial institution, or to build up one profile from the institution and then take part of those responsibilities. And Moses Risk and Compliance Department can do that. Yes, true. More of the indicators: institution assesses and manages the proper implementation of the strategy and potential side effects. The institution collects data ongoing basis to measure whether it's achieving its environmental goals in terms of the evolution, client, or portfolio vulnerability. The institution collects data on an ongoing basis to measure whether it's achieving the environmental goals in terms of the evolution of client or portfolio level adverse environmental impacts. The institution collects data on an ongoing basis to measure whether it's achieving its environmental goals in terms of the evolution of its own adverse environmental impacts, so of the institution, and the institution reports environmental performance data. So here, the second part of the indicators showing that it's not only about the vulnerability data collection, but as well of the adverse environmental impacts that the institution is having, as well as the clients. And here you will see in the quantitative indicators that now you can go more in depth, as we were commenting before, on what KPIs you can follow. Okay, so let's keep this slide for you to revise then in detail. Now let's use these minutes to go through the good practices and then share with you the digital tool, the link to access the digital tool, so that you can do your own assessment. here to everyone, we have 80 people, we have 10 more minutes, but if you allow me, we can extend a little bit if for you it's fine, 10 more minutes so that we can go through the good practices and the assessment. Thumbs up, or should I hurry up and no discussion? Thumbs up. Okay, let's go. We have here the chat ongoing. A question here shared to all: what motivates microfinance institutions to develop green strategy? Yeah, I think this is a question to pose to everybody. What motivates these institutions? Do they see the need by themselves? Is it a request or a project that has come with a partnership? Is it an opportunity that they see, or is it because of regulations and complying to the law that they have in the country? This is the question for everyone. What motivates microfinance institutions to develop a green strategy? And we will start, I think, let's start with that question then for the next trainings as a warm-up, because we would like to know from everybody. So we have the, we started with the good practice by Fortune Credit, an institution in Kenya, a semi-finalist last year for the European Microfinance Award. Fortune Credit has an environmental strategy covered from the period 2022 until 2027, with the objective of transition to clean energy, creating resilience, managing climate risk, and using digital solutions. So they specify what and the how. How are they doing this? With clear roles and responsibilities. On the board, a director serves as impact and environmental champion. So you see, even from the board, you have a responsible. The CEO acts as leader in implementing the green strategy. The social and environmental manager, a dedicated full-time staff member who acts as the impact and environment champion at the operational level. And all staff is also responsible for achieving the environmental strategy. Jonathan, here you have an ideal case where you have everybody involved, from the board management, from the board members up to the management, and with the strategy to and with the strategy also to involve all the staff. How do they put it in place? The board management track and use environmental data for each environmental specific objective. The institution monitors specific indicators on the green product portfolio. They have multiple technologies, not only one. And since February 2023, the institution is ensuring the implementation of the environmental strategy through targets for all the departments, trainings for the current and new staff, client awareness sessions, partnerships as a means to bring technology and knowledge at a lower cost, technical partners to train the clients in the specific technical solutions that they offer, and technology to efficiently collect, analyze, and share data. For instance, with index-based insurance products in real time. The social and environmental management system and procedures. Fortune Credit has this procedure. They implemented the Green Index 3.0 and the IFC standards, including the integration of social and environmental thinking into Fortune Credit's mainline functions. So by implementing the Green Index, and after a workshop with the Microfinance African Institution Network, where they were raised awareness on environmental and social transition, then it started all the social and environmental management of the institution. So this type of trainings raised awareness within the institution and set up a full strategy for them. Sharing results and ensuring feedback loop, the institution started to release the environmental data reports and conducted discussions on their environmental performance with the stakeholders. And these internal reports are shared and discussed also with employees and discussed on a quarterly basis And internal reports to management are produced as well on a monthly basis. With these two initial, with the roles or the responsibilities, do you have any comment? Do you see it difficult for your institutions? Are good practices achievable for you? Anyone? Well, while we see about the responsibilities and how the reporting and monitoring is helping the institutions, we see as well it's good, very achievable, and as you see, straightforward. Here we have the monitoring progress. So the key performance indicators are integrated into the MIS and collected on a daily basis. What are the KPIs? The total loans disbursed, women and youth as clients, share of the portfolio in clean energy products, amount of savings collected by energy product clients. These are totally achievable. So these are KPIs that you can easily integrate in your MIS. Managing the climate risk is the number of loan applications, the number of rejections based on the exclusion list out of the total number of loan applications. I think this is a wonderful indicator, the number of rejections or the number of recommendations and then guided clients. Most common risk identified, most risky sectors financed. And here it's interesting about the managing. So it's identifying the risk, but not yet managing them. And then in terms of resilience, number of financial literacy talks on insurance, amount of insurance premiums not funded, number of clients for whom 20% of insurance premiums is financed through Fortune Credit, the total loans disbursed for smart agriculture products, and the share of portfolio in smart agriculture products. So as you see here, is only about the client data. Any comment to those objectives, to those KPIs? Do you see them feasible also for you within your systems? Or anyone else applying exclusion list and recording those excluded or rejected loans? This is not a practice that I've seen in many institutions. So for those that have to leave, I will jump the good practices from Fundación Génesis Empresarial, and I will come back to it with those that can stay. But in these 3 last minutes, I'd like to share with you the environmental, how are we going to do the data collection? So the institutions will fill out a tool. The green index was before an Excel table. As we have expanded and the tool got more complex, we developed from HEDERA as IT partner has offered to develop the digital tool for the green index. And it is accessible in this link. We will share with you the link that we will provide for the training. The tool is open source. That means open source means that you can also install it within your system, and then you fill it out for yourself and have it. You can monitor your progress within your own institution, and so that you can regularly use it. For this training series, now we are going to collect the data standard by standard. For the FSPs, if you complete the self-assessment for all these 4 standards, you will receive after the final event the results of your assessment compared to the sample benchmark. And for that, once you filled out the tool, it's provided in the chat as well. You have to provide your contact information so that we can send you that report. If you're not an FSP, because now here we see impact investors, consultants, and development cooperation, it's no worries. Like, you can also train yourself and go through the digital tool, go through each of the indicators so that you can support your partners or client FSPs in the data collection. After you fill it out, you need to click on submit so that the data can be uploaded. The tool, the full green index, is available in English, in Spanish, in French, and for other institutions, we have even implemented in other languages. But here for the English one and for this standard, now you can follow already the tool and see what are those actions that we are referring to as good practices within green inclusive finance for the definition and implementation of the environmental strategy. Anyone here? So it's 11:30. Let's have anyone here raise hands if you had any difficulty clicking on the on the link. If you can explore the tool. No one? Can you give me thumbs up? All good, or in the chat? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay. In the tool, you will see a printer, an icon printer. You can print or save the PDF. For those that are not FSPs, you can save the PDF and then revise in detail the indicators. You can even, in the PDF, you can integrate your comments, highlight, put questions, have it as a reading material for you to see. And think about that all of these questions means, all of these indicators means that in the feedback round that we had from Green Index 2.0 to Green Index 3.0, those were activities that some institutions were implementing and that it was not reflected in the previous Green Index 2.0. So all these indicators are activities that the institutions can do, that are able to do, that somebody has already done, and that they are reflecting practices that help to the institution to be more sustainable, more environmentally conscious, and to avoid that greenwashing, but rather promising with objectives, but also taking action and be able to monitor it. I agree, you have to prove it. And you prove it with data, you prove it with your actions, you prove it with your strategy, and then with an offer that reflects that strategy. If all good, then let me give you let's finally discuss these 3 slides about Fundación Génesis Empresarial in Guatemala. And as well, be critical. Let's go back to the chat, be critical, or give me your first reactions so that we don't lose your thoughts here. Before, we had 2 comments in the chat about Jonella Ketri. Typically, if you have an exclusion list, you do filter those cases before registering them in your systems. True, but I invite you to register them. You don't know how much are you losing by not registering them. Because if you register them, you have immediately a market assessment. You can see already your client, what are their clients, what is potential customer doing, and then what type of technical assistance or awareness raising or capacity building you need in order to have more sustainable practices done by your clients. It's a free market assessment that you have there. And second, another indicator that you can target is what of your loans that you disperse, why is there a default? Why and is it why a client that was in an activity that was not that environmentally friendly, why are not they continuing the next loan cycle? Is it because of a climate event? Is it because the soil wasn't productive anymore? Do they need support there with alternatives in order to have a more productive activity? And there you have another free market assessment within your institution with all your clients. Valuable, precious data. One new message, yeah. Okay, we keep, thank you that all have, that all of you stay. Let's go to Fundación Génesis Empresarial. 3 slides only. First one, comprehensive environmental and social management system. The institution measures the level of exposure to environmental and social risks or specific events related to climate change. Is anyone here measuring that exposure? Are you aware of those exposure of your environmental and social risks? Hands up. Thumbs down. Nobody. Why will it be useful to know the exposure to environmental risks? So this institution does it and differentiates the clients, identifying productive activities and associated risk and opportunities to offer tailored products with an environmental focus that are adapted to the needs. So the first impression is that you need a system to do it. You need also tools for that, and you need to have the consciousness of what does it mean, and also to be aware of all the risks that you had. We had a discussion last week about what could be a consequence of being aware of all the risks. Will you convert more risk averse or risk lover, or are you going to take action, or rather are you going to move on from one branch to the other, or change your services? So what is Fundación Génesis Empresarial here doing? Their management system applies a gender approach with social and environmental awareness. They say the institution has 16,000 indigenous clients out of their more than 200,000 clients who report an agricultural activity and who are included in their vulnerability classification. So 24% of clients with low risk to climate events, 59% with medium risk, and 17% with high risks. So what we see first is that they still serve those with high risk, that they are aware that most of them are in medium risk, although this vulnerability classification is combining both social and environmental, and that they are aware of this, that this categorization serves them as well to see with whom are they addressing. Management system that applies an agroclimatic approach in search of building resilience. So the institution value chain program aims to finance and advise small-scale agricultural producers to consider climate risks and implement good agricultural practices or adaptation measures that will enable them to improve their production and become more resilient. And these advisories are powered by artificial intelligence. Any comment here, reaction? Type fast in the chat. Is it a good practice? Any challenge that you identify? IFAD. It is expensive for smallholders. Is it? Are the smallholders paying for this? The management system? It's a good practice, yes. Anything that gives more detailed information is good practice, I agree. Yeah, okay, good, Alexandra has a point. Is the implementation of the AI by the FI expensive? So yeah, the question is, are the tools expensive for the institution? And then the next question as a business developer is, what are you saving if you are not providing those recommendations? So if the software is telling you that after those recommendations, you will have more productive clients or less vulnerable clients, or improving the agricultural system of the clients, it is then an affordable tool. The results will give more benefits, as it can be initially an investment for the institution. And for Jonathan, yeah, so if it's expensive for the time to learn, yes, any change, I agree, any change, it's expensive. It is hard to change practices. If this has been, especially in agriculture or in rural areas, if you are implementing practices that you have seen all your families and generations doing, it's very hard to change a practice. But that's the goal or the role of the financial service provider, how to motivate changes in difficult or in these situations where you need lots of capacity building, lots of efforts in communicating to know what will be the benefits of changing those practices. And here is where I see the expenses adding up, not only on the tool, the tool itself, but then later, how are you going to give the capacity building and the raising awareness, and are you going to show what other practices? If you show, then is it in the terms or in the time that that institution or that the loan is running? When is it possible? TECWAM, good practice, but very expensive to implement for smallholder farmers, especially those struggling for survival. So the practice is a practice at the institutional level. The smallholder farmers don't pay the cost of the loan, but still we need to know how manageable are those investments for the institutions. And the last one, so last slide for you to have the overview of what the institution is doing. The management system that applies a climatic approach in searching of building resilience. Agronomist and knowledge is complemented by the integration of this data-rich tool that works with satellite sensors to provide data on the state of the soil and climatic conditions in real time. And this information, combined with the client's vulnerability information, facilitates the generation of personalized and very complete diagnosis that inform the decisions of the credit committee. Information is also provided to clients to alert them and anticipate risk situations due to climatic alterations and to find alternative insurance products or adaptation projects to be financed. So totally a climate adaptation approach based or relying on tools with digital tools managed by the loan officers that visit the clients, and then with a large responsibility from the loan officer to the client to deliver that knowledge. I see here reflection from Johnson Rucara. My biggest issue is if the price of innovation and improved technology won't be met by customers, and also the efficiency of the technologies, especially in low developing countries, and access to information on both ends. Remember that is using satellite data, so it absorbs, so it doesn't matter where exactly are the price of the technology is absorbed by the institution or supported. And here for Fundación Génesis Empresarial specifically, we have a webinar of the e-MFP. You can find it in the website of e-MFP, the action group, the webinar series, where you can go in detail of how was the tools implemented from the supplier Yapu Solutions. From IFAD, if the cost of building the resilience is inputted as part of their cost of production, then the smallholders are looking for reasonable return of investments. Yes. Indeed, so any solution that is proposed, it should increase the return of investments. Now, with this digital tool, with the recommendations that is providing, those recommendations that are come also from UNEP, from the program microfinance based adaptation, then the ecosystem based adaptation. Then the measures, all these measures have also been studied, and with details of how is it going to improve the agricultural practices. Now, of course, no, this has to be evaluated case by case, or in the context, or specifically in the country or region that it's implemented. But at least here, now with the solutions that you have, an overview of what are those climate risks that the client has, having in the conscious as institution, what could be recommendations that can be provided, and then following on those recommendations. I hear the last message is, don't be afraid of the information. Information is key. We don't want, with the climate risk that we identify, it's not that you have to exclude clients or exclude regions or exclude financial services, but rather rethink what could we offer as financial services that can enhance that resilience, or that can reduce that risk, or that can motivate other diversification of activities. Imagine that the worst case scenario is, if we don't attend that risk, then people will migrate, or they will go to other institutions that can offer the solution that they are looking for, or that can offer not a proper resilience solution. You have, the idea is to accompany those clients, reduce that risk, and enable them for this climate adaptation and climate resilience before we address climate loss in the portfolio. With this, we are closing here the training for today. Don't forget to submit for those FSPs that would like to have their results of the assessment of this first standard. And if you have any question about the indicators, or while you are filling out the tool, you can reach us with through Joanna's email, Joanna Afonso from e-MFP, and contact along this training series. And we'll see each other next week. I will say that for the next week, we can go shorter on the introduction, so that we can go more in depth on the good practices. And if there is anyone, and I will include the view from the risk management and opportunities management to see the flow. Okay. Thank you very much for everyone, especially for all those inputs and interesting questions. That makes a training much better experience, and doesn't feel that weird to be in this virtual environment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Okay.
I will here stop sharing if you are